Hey church, Pastor Shane here, another community group discussion starter video. This week we were in part 2 of our series of Haggai. As you recall, Haggai is a book of the minor prophets. Haggai is a prophet that God sends to encourage his people to motivate them to build the temple. See, when the exiles returned from being kind of dispersed and exiled among the nations after 70 years, God had promised that he would help them return and build his temple. And so that is what they have been doing. But then that work suddenly stopped because they faced opposition from some of their surrounding neighbors, and people began getting interested in kind of their own lives rather than putting God as first in their lives. And so building stopped at the temple for 16 years after the foundation was laid. And last week we saw God give the people a wake-up call. He sent Haggai to tell them, like, hey, you should be working on my house. You should be making me the priority. I am the creator of heavens and earth. I'm the one who kind of led you back into this land. It's time for you to kind of complete the temple and be my people. And as he was telling them that, God also reminded them that the reason why they were not prospering in the land is because they weren't being obedient to what God had called them to do. And that was the agreement, the covenant that God had made with his people, centuries and centuries before, during, in the books of Deuteronomy and Exodus, where he said, listen, if you obey me, then I'll bless you in the land. I'll provide you everything you need. But if you don't obey me, I'm not going to do that. And so they're kind of suffering from kind of ignoring God. And so they did turn their attention back to God. They listened to the prophet Haggai, and God kind of gave them a return message to encourage them all the more and reminded them that he was with them, and just encouraged them to continue to follow him and stirred up the people to get this work done. Well, we started in chapter 2 this week and picked up the story where it left off. And it turns out things have been going well for a little bit, but there was a problem. Some of the people who had memories of the temple before it was destroyed, or read about the temple at Solomon, and certainly people had heard from those who they're from their elders who had passed away about it, saw the new temple and were not impressed with it. It wasn't as grand as Solomon's temple, even though, by the time that it was destroyed, it wasn't the same thing that when it was first built. But still, compared to the grandeur of it, their kind of new temple construction was not very impressive. And so it was discouraging them from the work because of that. Some commentators even saying the work kind of had stopped altogether sometime in that month. And so God sends Haggai back to say, hey, listen, I understand it seems like this temple is nothing compared to the old one, and isn't meeting your kind of expectations. But I am with you. Continue to be strong. Remember, I'm going to help you accomplish this project. And don't worry, I'm going to fill the temple. My presence is going to be there. And God is going to provide everything that they need to get this project done. And there's a day coming when all the world will worship and bow down to God. It says he's going to shake the nations, essentially telling them that one day in the future there will be a temple that is more grand than not only this one, but even greater than Solomon's temple. So build this one for now and worship the Lord who is going to do these things. And as we saw the message, we talked about the fact that sometimes, like the Jewish people in this time did, we have unmet expectations. We expect God to do one thing and he does another, and it could really throw us off, especially if we really thought he was going to lead us or guide us in a certain direction. We talked about the fact that that's not God's fault. That's kind of on us. It was our expectations that didn't get met, rather than God who is kind of leading and guiding us in what he desires and even knows what is best. And so the solution for unmet expectations is to kind of look for God and try to see things from his perspective. Understand that our perspective is limited not only in our own lives, but in the grandness of God's plan. And that is why he does things. And that's why sometimes things turn out differently than we would expect. That's why God reminded the people, the Israelites, not only of their past and how he'd been faithful to them, but also told them about the future. Hey, this temple may not seem like much now, but one day it's going to be grander than... There's going to be a temple that's grander than Solomon's, that God is at work. He is going to fulfill those promises. There's just some patience and obedience that's needed by the people while they live in this in-between time. And then last, there's just some encouragement that God encourages us in this. He is so gracious and patient with us. And he encourages us and gives us strength to kind of keep going and follow him, even when things don't go the way we expected. When he reminds us of his promises, when he reminds us of his provision, when he reminds us that his presence is with us. And that's a big emphasis throughout this whole book of Haggai, his presence with his people. He said it in chapter 1, I am with you. He said it again in this chapter, literally the same thing, like, I am with you. And he also said, like, I'm going to fill this temple. And what he means by that is fill the temple with his presence, that his presence is going to be among them. And that should be comforting and motivating to us, that God desires to be close to us. And even when things aren't going the way we expect them to go, his presence is still there to comfort us or to help us or to guide us. Whatever we need, he's there. I hope you have a great discussion.